everyone, and welcome to another edition of In the Kitchen with Karen. So I always am a recipe looker on YouTube, and I have noticed that there are a ton of recipes for banana bread. So I wanted to show you my banana bread today. I like mine, of course, best because I think it has a few extra ingredients that not all of them have. So today I'm calling this loaded banana bread. It's gonna have some toasted pecans, mini chocolate chips, and my secret ingredient, a touch of bourbon. Now people won't be able to tell there's any bourbon in there, but it just gives it that little extra something. As a matter of fact, you may have heard of Madagascar bourbon vanilla. Well, that's how they make vanilla, with bourbon. So I'm just gonna use the non-aged version. So just has some easy ingredients. It comes together in 5 minutes. We're gonna bake it for an hour and it's gonna come out great. So let's get started. So the first thing we want to do is toast our pecans. Now I highly recommend that you toast any kind of nut that you're going to use in a recipe, because that's going to bring out the oils in the nuts and give it a much better flavor. So I am taking 3/4 of a cup of pecans and I'm just toasting them in a shallow pan over medium heat for 3 to 4 minutes, stirring constantly until they start to smell fragrant. So the first thing we want to do is take a loaf pan. Now I really prefer using parchment paper for all my pans because that way nothing is going to stick in there. But if you don't have parchment paper, just spray it or butter it really well and flour it and you should be good. Now I'm going to show you a little trick on how I like to use my parchment paper. First of all, I'm going to put it in the pan and make a little indentation. Then I'm going to take it out and cut along the lines, and that way it's going to fit really nicely inside. Add to a bowl 6 tablespoons of melted butter. To that we are going to add a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar and a 1/2 cup of dark brown or light brown sugar. Now we're going to give that a nice stir. The great thing about this is you don't even need an electric mixer. So the next thing we're going to add is our eggs. We need 2 large eggs. And now give that another stir. Now let's talk about the most important part of this recipe, the bananas. Now what you really need to do is make sure your bananas are super ripe. Now what I like to do is buy a bunch of bananas, keep them out of my counter until they are very dark brown. Then I slice them up and I put them in a Ziploc bag and freeze them. Then whenever I'm gonna make banana bread, I always have some perfectly ripe bananas ready. Because there's nothing more frustrating than when you have an urge to make banana bread, you go to the store and none of the bananas are ripe enough. They look like this. This is barely ripe. It is not going to work for banana bread. So this is how we want our bananas to look. Very dark and they are super fragrant. So what I have here is about 3 medium bananas or 1.5 cups of mashed banana. I just took the bananas and I took a potato masher and just mashed them up. And now we're going to add this to our mixture. Now we're going to add our secret ingredient, 1 tablespoon of bourbon, or you could also use whiskey, or you could also use rum. But I think bourbon gives it the best flavor. And to that, we are also going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And if you guys remember on my last video, I told you this cap equals 1 teaspoon. And now we're just going to give that another stir. Now we are going to add 1 teaspoon of baking soda, a half a teaspoon of baking powder, and a half a teaspoon of salt. We are gonna add 2 cups of flour. About half of this flour right now. I'm gonna switch over to my wooden spoon, it's easier to mix. And now the secret to making a good banana bread is you do not wanna overmix it. You wanna mix it as little as possible. And now I'm gonna take 1/3 cup of full fat sour cream and add that in. And now I'm gonna add the rest of my flour. I wish you guys could smell this. It smells so banana-y, if that's a word. And now we're gonna add about 5 ounces or half a bag of mini chocolate chips. Today I'm using Ghirardelli chocolate chips. I think they're a really good quality. And I like to use the mini ones because that way you get more pieces of chocolate inside the banana bread and you don't get big hunks of it from the regular size chips. So now I'm gonna set our bowl aside for just a couple minutes while I chop our toasted pecans. Okay, this looks good. We want them to be chopped, but we don't want them to be in tiny pieces. We want to be able to recognize that it's still a pecan. And now we're gonna add our chopped toasted pecans. And now we're just gonna mix all of this up. So you just need to fold them in. I'm just turning the spoon to fold all the ingredients together. Okay, that looks perfect. Okay, now we are gonna add this to our pan. And once we have it in there, we are gonna evenly spread it from corner to corner. So there's not one part that's too thick. Now you are gonna have a little bit left over in your bowl. I don't wanna fill this any higher because I'm afraid it's gonna spill over. So what I do is I make Chris a little a miniature cake with it, a little muffin cake. So you can just put it in a little pan and this can be the chef's portion. Okay, so I have my oven preheated to 350 degrees. This is gonna go in the middle rack and we are gonna bake it for approximately 50 to 60 minutes. After 50 minutes, take a knife or a toothpick and put it in the middle, and if it comes out clean, that means it's done. So our bread has been cooling for about an hour, and now I'm gonna take it out of the pan. This was in the oven at 350 for 55 minutes. As I told you before, it takes anywhere from 50 to 60 minutes, and I took this one out at 55 minutes. So it's been cooling for an hour, and now let's cut into it. Okay, and now I'm gonna show you guys a little final step that I like to do. Now this is totally optional, but I think it gives it a nice extra touch. So what I did was I mixed a little bit of powdered sugar, pure maple syrup, and a tiny bit of bourbon, and I made a glaze. I will put the exact measurements in the recipe. And then I'm just gonna drizzle it over the banana bread. Now I'm just doing half the banana bread, so one half will be plain and the other half I'm gonna use the glaze. Okay guys, I cut myself a slice and I'm gonna try it. And I also just wanted to mention, if you're more of a purist and you don't like chocolate chips or even nuts in your banana bread, you can totally leave them out and it'll still come out great. But I think it's really good with everything inside. I have a piece with the glaze and I'm gonna give it a try. So good. It's so banana-y. Is that a word? I don't know. But it is. It's super moist. I mean, you know when you're eating a piece of cake and it sticks to your fork, it's moist. So I hope you guys are gonna give this a try. I know you're gonna love it, and let me know what you think. So thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you on the next episode of In the Kitchen with Karen.